now, someone can just jump into this and do some purportedly better or easier thing? Like, what would that be? Warmest regards, Mike. Well, as an indication of, we're talking about solution here, as an indication already of where that goes, another fellow, Berger Runner Runar Samuelsson from Iceland, posted to me. He indicated that he liked one of these posts. And what did he write me? He wrote, "The weapon is Glass-Steagall in USA. That is it." In other words, the Glass-Steagall Act. And lo and behold, Glass-Steagall is listed at the top of the list of this IFRI site in Iceland. Of the 10 points that I'll give you the 10 points now. Number 1 is reinstatement of Glass-Steagall. A lot of people aren't going to know what that is, but we're going to cover that here really quick. Number 2, burgeoning deposits. I mean, a lot of these points are preposterous. 3, creation of money by private parties. Well, guess who introduced that idea? And who should the private parties be? But all of us do this common monetary foundry. Number 4, interest-free money creation. Guess who's the origin of that idea here? Inflation is determined. Inflation is eradicated. Not even a necessary point. 6, pension funds and mortgages. Solve that in our transformation to mathematically perfected economy. How? Crediting the accounts of the people by a formula, which I'm not going to give right now because my plagiarists are going to be claiming that all over Nisara and Ellen Hodgson Brown's Web of Debt and every other phony that's out there. But taken care of. This thing that they're trying to do, deprive you of Social Security for another couple of years, I can give it to you immediately by the transformation to mathematically perfected economy. Not only that, not just for you, but everybody else. Everybody else. How to take care of it. We can't even afford to take care of it under this system. You won't even have it in a few more years. You theoretically don't have it now. You know, they can only give any of it to any of us by smoke and mirrors, because it was never a sustainable concept from the very beginning. Okay? But I fixed that. Okay? I fixed it a long time ago. You just haven't done anything about it because, whatever, something else is more important. 7, they give the traceability of capital. Well, you know, and I mean, if you're the common monetary foundry and you're maintaining the accounts of the people, sorry, taken care of already by mathematically perfected economy. 8, referendum on state borrowings. Well, state isn't going to borrow anything under mathematically perfected economy. This is solved as well. You decide what infrastructures you want to provide in common to yourselves. That's all the government ever does. And you decide that whoever is going to build them or whatever, the costs incurred of providing them are done, is paid by those who consume them in proportion to consumption, which is part of this worldwide mandate that we're hosting. So that's solved as well. Okay? Now, 9, he gives us information accessibility. Well, you have all the information. Not only that, you have it in the way that you need it, so you know what's going on. Ellen Hodgson Brown wants to charge interest in these banks and then spend that on government over here. Well, you know, who says that the rate of interest applied to everyone for however much their debts are equates to what they're enjoying from the government? That's a preposterous idea. Not even close to right. It's stupid as stupid gets. You do this, you finance each thing as need be, and the people that consume it will pay for it, and you know exactly what you're getting for what you're paying. And you can piss and moan about it if you want to. Then you can say, hey, there's no way this road should be costing us this much. What the hell's going on here? And you dig around a little bit, and there'd be some way that some congressman got some kickback from the construction company. And guess what? If you had a common monetary foundry, Be right in the records. Can't happen. 10. Restraint, transparency, and education. Well, study my pages. There's your education. Transparency, we've already given that. Restraint, that's creditworthiness. We're enforcing creditworthiness in the Common Monetary Foundry. Every point already taken care of. Does Ellen Hodgson Brown have a solution for all these things? I'll bet you she tells you she does next week. Now, so, what did this fellow, Runar Simonson, and I'm sorry, I know I'm doing a terrible job of pronouncing that wrong. I have the same problem with my name lifelong. He writes back, the weapon is Glass-Steagall, and I'm going to respond to this. First I respond to him, and then we're going to get into Glass-Steagall, because people are promoting Glass-Steagall across the world, or so they say, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. It's a vital thing to understand. What is Glass-Steagall? Does it have a hope for any of us? All right. So I respond to Berger. He says the weapon is Glass-Steagall in USA. That is it. No, Berger, the weapon is mathematically perfected economy, and not just here in the United States, but in Iceland as well. So I respond to him. I say, sorry, Berger. It's not the alpha group of bank. Oh, excuse me. I forgot to read his first sentence. The inter-alpha group of banks, Rothschilds, must be taken down now. Now is in all caps. Exclamation point. The weapon is Glass-Steagall in USA. That is it. Sorry, it's not. It's not. Now, and the other problem is, you take down the top bank and you leave banking the same process. We need the same amount of money. We have to borrow the same amount to maintain a vital circulation. It just happens through a different set of banks. What's the goddamn difference? Wake up. That's not the problem. The top bank, the central bank, it's the whole banking system. It's the obfuscation of the currency that the whole banking system exists to impose upon us for the purpose of exploitation. So I write him back. I say, sorry, Berger. It's not the alpha group of banks which is the problem. It's all banks because, quote, banking, unquote, is based upon a terminal obfuscation of the currency. Andrew Jackson made the same mistake. He took down, quote, the second bank, unquote, quote, of the United States, unquote, but he left the same obfuscation of the currency to prevail. What was the consequence? Bill Stills just reports that Jackson was great for eliminating the second bank of the United States. And all this is important. And now Bill Stills is advocating eradication of interest. And why did Bill Stills, like G. Edward Griffin, turn 180 degrees around in such a short while? Because I'm all over him like flies on shit. Interest still multiplied artificial indebtedness, and so, on the heels of the one term Jackson served out, our country suffered tremendous turmoil, a virtual financial disaster left in Jackson's wake. Glass-Steagall is about regulating banks. You cannot eradicate the terminal consequences of the obfuscated currency of banking by regulating banking, leaving the obfuscation to take its inevitable course. If you pass a purported law preventing you from hitting the ground if you jump off a cliff, does it protect you from hitting the ground? Absolutely not. Nor is it possible for any banking regulation under God to avert terminal multiplication of artificial indebtedness by interest, because the process prevails in its consequences, despite whatever we could ever pretend to prevent of those consequences. Glass-Steagall can never solve the problems engendered by the lie of banking, because the lie of banking is the lie of economy, which not only makes economy impossible, but makes the lie terminal. You cannot even maintain a vital circulation subject to interest without I've been explaining these things, as I told you, tens of thousands of times for 40 years. You cannot even maintain a vital circulation subject to interest. Sorry if I'm boring you now, but can you explain this in your own words? Because the lie of banking is a lie of economy, which only, you cannot even maintain a vital circulation subject to interest without perpetually reborrowing principal and interest paid out of the general circulation as ever greater sums of debt, perpetually increased by so much as interest on an ever greater sum of debt. What do you think Jefferson meant when he said, if the American people ever allow the banks to issue their currency, first by inflation and then by deflation, borrowing artificial debt into circulation comprised of some remaining principal, I'm interjecting this, and having to pay not only the principal but interest out of the circulation. In other words, that's what I'm saying Jefferson's means by deflation and deflation. A thing you wouldn't even understand if you didn't already understand my thesis of inevitable failure and singular solution. So what do you think Jefferson meant by saying if the American people ever allowed the banks to issue their currency first by inflation and then by deflation, the banks and corporations which will grow up around them will deprive the people of all property until their children wake homeless on the continent their fathers conquered. It's a process which is indispensable and irreversible to the implicit obligation to maintain a vital circulation by perpetually reborrowing principal and interest as an ever greater sum of debt which is at stake. No banking regulation in the world eradicates that process without eradicating banking itself, because the means of oppression is the very purpose of the lie we call banking. If you need to see the math on that, download the computer models I provided the Reagan administration in 1983 or 4, which projected that the world economies would fail at approximately 2010 AD. Does Glass-Steagall eradicate interest? Impose an obligatory schedule of payment which alone solves inflation, deflation, and maldisposition of the circulation? Absolutely not. Does Glass-Steagall prevent the purported banks from laundering principal into their possession? Absolutely not. So Glass-Steagall is smoke and mirrors, and I know who is promoting it and why. You should too. So who is promoting this? One Lyndon Larouche. Now it's funny, I never heard that Lyndon Larouche had an alternate monetary solution until long after I wrote him, and he began to talk like me in a lot of ways. Well, he's another plagiarist. He borrows lightly from some ideas, but if he understood them, he'd understand we have to eradicate interest. And of course, Glass-Steagall does not eradicate interest. Funny little story about Lyndon Larouche. This past September, I was visiting some people who are good friends of ours now in Idaho, Gilbert and Molly Gerzanski, and Gilbert is and Molly both are very, there's a lot of people are in the Boise area. And there's just a tremendous amount of political consciousness there of all the places in the states that I visit. Boise is quite a place. Quite a place for political consciousness. I meet many good people there. And it was Gilbert's birthday, and he had heard that there was a Lyndon Larouche. We weren't certain what the purpose of the gathering was about, but likely it was recruitment, to gather, support. And Gilbert and I decided to go drop in on this thing, of course, not to be disturbing presences necessarily, but to challenge him publicly. I didn't know if Lyndon Larouche was going to speak himself or whatever. And this was supposed to be in this huge building at Boise State.